Now, in our health segment today, we're talking about endometriosis, a gynecological condition that affects some 10% of women. The symptoms can vary, with some women asymptomatic and others hardly, or very badly affected rather, with very, very severe pelvic pains. Let's bring in our health editor, Julia Seeger. Hello, Julia.
Hello, Annette.
Now, you and I know what endometriosis is, but there are a lot of people who don't.
Actually, what's important is to first understand what happens during a normal menstrual cycle. So the inner lining of your uterus, which is called the endometrium, thickens to prepare to receive a fertilized egg. If it doesn't receive a fertilized egg, then your body will simply shed it, and that's what we call today periods, right? But endometriosis is a disorder when the endometrium actually is found growing outside of the uterus, but also on the ovaries, the fallopian tubes, and also the intestines. And this is what causes debilitating pains, also these damaging inflammation. As you can see here on the diagram, it's really outside of the uterus. And so in 30 to 50% of cases, it causes infertility. Now, as you said, there are about 10% of women worldwide who are affected by endometriosis, and some of them will be asymptomatic, but 40% of them describe very intense pelvic pains. So it's now actually believed that more women than that are affected by this disease because on average it takes 7 years for a woman to be diagnosed. It's due to the fact that there's been a lot of taboo and stigma around this disease, many doctors saying that it's just normal for women to feel pain, and it's also due to the fact that physicians are not well trained to actually diagnose it. Now, so we do believe today that it is linked to, it's a hormone-dependent disease, so it's linked to estrogen. But some women will feel those pelvic pains during their cycles, other outside of their cycles, even 20 days in a month. And it can also, we don't quite yet understand, though, why this lining can actually migrate to other organs like the bladder or the colon, or even in some cases, the lungs. And what's important to say is that we believe that it's linked to hormones, but we don't actually know what the real cause of endometriosis is. There are other theories that include genetics, but also, dysfunctions of the immune system.
Yes, and I did hear recently that doctors are only given somewhere, I think, around half a day's training on the issue, which is extraordinary. Now, some women are asymptomatic, as you said, and some will be very badly affected. But what are the major symptoms of this disease?
Well, the major symptoms, it's actually very close to a severe PMS. So it's going to be, a pain in your lower tummy or back that gets worse during your period. It can also be a pain during or after a sexual intercourse, or when going to the restroom. It can be also feeling sick, constipation, diarrhea, feeling bloated, very heavy legs, and also very heavy period. Now, some of these pelvic pains are actually very close to true labor contractions, and so another symptom is also infertility. Of 30 to 50% of women with endometriosis are unable to conceive, even though it is still possible in some cases. It depends on the degree of the disease that you're at, and also there are some solutions of assisted treatments. Intrauterine insemination and in vitro fertilization are to be considered as well.
But it's not a curable disease, and as you've pointed out, there are some treatments to help people.
Yes, but I think the main problem here is really the diagnosis. It takes 7 years on average to be diagnosed. Diagnosis tests include MRIs and scanners, but they're actually not that effective. And the only way you can know 100% that you have endometriosis is a laparoscopy, which is very invasive. There are treatments, so it includes, of course, painkillers, a lot of painkillers, hormone medicines, and contraceptives to try to get rid of your period altogether. There's also surgery to try to cut away patches of this endometriosis tissue. And as a last resort, there's a hysterectomy, which is to remove part or all of the organs, if it hasn't migrated too much, all of the organs that are affected by endometriosis. And here, Anna, I think it's very important to say that we've been waiting for a very long time for doctors to be a little bit more aware of this disease. There's been a lot of stigma, a lot of prejudice around this disease. And, what's really interesting, and you know this better than anybody else as a presenter of the 51%, that there's been much less investment in research with pathologies that are directly linked to women only. Historically, women with pelvic pains were just simply considered as hysterical.
Indeed. Thanks for that, Julia Seeger, France 24's health editor.